Hi everyone. The EU and New Zealand last week finalized negotiations on a trade deal that promises to bring significant economic opportunities to businesses and consumers on both sides. The agreement also includes unprecedented sustainability commitments, including compliance with the Paris Agreement and core workers' rights. These obligations can be enforced through trade sanctions as a last resort. Bilateral trade is expected to grow by up to 30% thanks to this deal, while annual EU exports could increase by up to 4.5 billion euros. In EU, investment in New Zealand could increase by up to 80%. The agreement can bring about 140 million euros in tariff reduction per year for companies in the EU from the first year of application. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said about this: New Zealand is an important partner for us in the Indo-Pacific region. This trade agreement offers great opportunities for our businesses, our farmers, and our consumers on both sides. It will help increase trade between us by 30%. It includes unprecedented social and climate policy commitments. This new agreement between the European Union and New Zealand comes at an important geopolitical moment. Democracies like ours work together and bring value to people. And Commission Executive Vice President of Trade Valdis Dombrovskis said, "This is a new generation of trade deals where both sides will reap real economic and environmental benefits. New economic opportunities are critical in our efforts to recover from the shock of the COVID-19 pandemic and Russia's aggression against Ukraine. This agreement will open up a wealth of new export opportunities for goods and services for EU companies and SMEs. It also includes sustainability commitments of unprecedented ambition in a trade agreement. This shows that we are already delivering on our promise to add more value from our trade deals in terms of sustainability." The agreement opens up new opportunities for companies by banning a lot of tariffs on EU exports to New Zealand. And the New Zealand services market will be opened up in key sectors such as financial services, telecommunications, maritime transport, and delivery services. And it's ensuring non-discriminatory treatment of EU investors in New Zealand and, of course, vice versa. It's increasing the participation of EU companies in New Zealand public tenders for goods, services, works concessions. The New Zealand public procurement market is worth around 60 billion euros per year. And it's promoting data flows, predictable and transparent rules for digital commerce, and a safe online environment for consumers. And unjustified data localization requirements are prevented, and the high level of personal data protection is maintained. And it helps small businesses to do more with a dedicated chapter on small and medium-sized businesses, the so-called SMEs. The compliance requirements and procedures are significantly reduced to allow for a faster flow of goods. And New Zealand has made significant commitments to protect and enforce intellectual property rights in line with EU standards. EU farmers will have significantly better opportunities to sell their produce in New Zealand as soon as the agreement comes into effect. Tariffs on key EU exports such as pork, wine and sparkling wine, chocolate, confectionery and biscuits will be eliminated from day one. EU farmers will see other improvements on top of the tariff cuts. The agreement protects the full list of EU wines and spirits, which is nearly 2,000 names, such as Prosecco, Polska Vodka, Rioja, Champagne, and Tokaj. In addition, 163 of the most renowned traditional products from the EU, with geographical indications, including cheeses such as Asiago, Feta, Comté or Queso Manchego, Istarski Pschut, Lübecker Marzipan, Elias Kalamatas, are protected in New Zealand. The agreement takes into account the interests of EU producers of sensitive agricultural products, some dairy products, beef and mutton, ethanol and sweet corn. In these areas, the agreement will only allow limited amounts of duty-free imports or imports with a lower duty rate from New Zealand through so-called tariff quotas. The EU-New Zealand trade deal is the first trade agreement to integrate the EU's new approach to trade and sustainable development, announced in the communication called The Power of Trade Partnerships, Working Together for Green and Fair Economic Growth, adopted just last week. Both sides agreed on ambitious trade and sustainable development commitments covering a wide range of issues based on cooperation and strengthened enforcement. This also includes the possibility of sanctions as a last resort in the event of serious violations of fundamental labor law principles or the Paris Agreement. Compliance with the Paris Agreement will also be an essential element of this agreement. For the first time, an EU trade deal includes a dedicated chapter on sustainable food systems, a dedicated article on trade and gender equality, a dedicated provision on trade and fossil fuel subsidies reform, and when it enters into force, the agreement will also liberalize green goods and services. This is in line with citizens' recommendations from the Conference on the Future of Europe to promote sustainable trade while opening up new opportunities for European businesses. The negotiated drafts will be published shortly. These drafts are subjected to legal scrubbing and translated into all official EU languages. That always takes some time. The EU Commission will then send the agreements to the Council for signature and conclusion. Once approved by the Council, the EU and New Zealand can sign the agreement. Once signed, the text will be sent to the European Parliament for approval. After approval by Parliament, and once New Zealand has also ratified the agreement, it can enter into force. Negotiations for a trade agreement with New Zealand began in June 2018. The 12th round of negotiations in March 2022 was followed by inter-session talks, and negotiations concluded on June 30th in 2022. You might have seen my video on my first main channel back in the time about the starting of the negotiations. So you see how time is running. But the negotiations, from my point of view, looking at a lot of this stuff, were quite short, I must say. And let's see what the future brings. I'll see you in my next video. Ich sehe euch da.